Hi, I'm Geraldine Carrier.
And I'm Taryn Reimer. Welcome to INCA Inspired.
This is where it started, for a group of 17 Indian communication and art students, but it's only the beginning for this group of aspiring journalists.
So let us take you to where we want to be. Welcome to INCA Inspired.
It's a huge world out there. While many Indigenous people want to focus on their homes and communities, others want to see it and share it with other people. And they want to go global, just like Forest Chief.
I can't imagine the world without technology. Being a native has two meanings for me. I'm the kind with brown skin, but I'm also a digital native. That means I was born in the digital age. I'm what you call a techie. I had my first Hotmail account when I was 8. I live in Regina, but my world is so much bigger thanks to these. Wab Canoe, best known for his work in Canada, but now he's covering things like this. He's crossing the globe working for Al Jazeera America.
I hooked up with Al Jazeera through I Don't Know More.
It's amazing to think that he got his job from something that blew up on Twitter.
I'm hoping this new gig turns out well because being a foreign correspondent is my dream job.
I know technology can bring the world to me, but I'm ready to shoot myself out into the world. My name is Forrest, and I am INCA Inspired.
Our next story is about a young woman who never wants to sit on the sidelines. A sports enthusiast and aspiring journalist, Paige Kreitzweiser knows what a field goal will look like for her.
This is one of the sports I love, and the one I can actually play well. No, this isn't a sports injury, just a tiny fall. And it definitely won't keep me out of the game, especially the way I want to get into the game. This is how I want to get into the game. Shows like this made me realize every athlete, every sport has a story, and I want to tell those stories. My first stand-up, my first on camera. It's harder than those sports journalist pros make it look, and yet I'm loving it. And in the back of my mind, I'm imagining, here, on game day, telling people all about who's in the game, who's out, and telling the people of this province about their favorite team. And that's why meeting this man at this point is key. Richard Agecoutay is a shooter for CBC. He does Hockey Night in Canada, FIFA World Cups, and he's gone everywhere.
The thing about sports is it's human drama, and there's a winner and there's a loser. And you can find those moments of agony and ecstasy. And same thing with plays. The plays develop in certain ways in any given sport. It starts wide, it goes medium, it goes tight. The visuals add to the viewer experience, and that's what we as broadcasters are there to do.
And his advice is something that will really help me excel.
The advice I'd give to an aspiring journalist is to try and participate as much in your chosen field as possible. Meaning, if you can't find a job, volunteer. Most major centers have volunteer cable stations, or talk to the producers, because most networks will take interns.
And while I know I may not start in sports, I'm willing to work my way up to wherever it leads until I am with someone like Richard in a big stadium on game day. I'm Paige Kreitzweiser, and I'm inspired.
Learning is not something that just happens in schools. For Christy Auger, it's something that happens in every aspect of her life, and she loves it. That's inspired her to share. And what better way to do that than as a journalist, someone who learns and shares with what happens in the world.
This is me on my first trip to Nicaragua about 3 years ago. I went there to volunteer and to experience an entirely new culture. While I was there, we built classrooms, and we taught each other about our cultures. What did it mean to be First Nations? Right now, I'm here.
Hi, I'm Christy Auger.
Hosting a radio show. When I heard about INCA, I knew. Something about journalism was calling me. And that's where I met this person.
No one owes us anything. We owe each other everything. And if you can come in with that attitude, just ready to work and ready to do stuff and on time and early and there, it'll just all open up for you.
What I know about me is that I love learning. I love talking to people, and I love sharing stories.
You have to have this incredible respect for people and their stories. I think you have to know that it's not about you. It's never about you. That's always about them.
So while I don't know if I'm headed into the journalism field,
or if this is something I'll add to another career, I know this. I'm learning and that will never stop. I'm Christy Auger and I'm inspired.
For many of us, we want to learn about others, but also stay connected to our roots. So what do you do if your community is spread all over the country? Extra, extra, read all about it! Of course. Rafik Bouyan explains.
That's my son. He speaks Bengali perfectly. But not all Bangladeshi kids living here in Canada can. He is fluent because of this. I am the editor of this Bangladeshi newspaper. It keeps my community connected from coast to coast. And my son's been helping me with it since the age of 7. This is John Lesmodier. We have more in common than you might think. John's a Métis guy from Saskatchewan. He is a newspaper editor like me.
I am the editor and publisher, so I wear a couple different hats, both chasing after the business end and also worrying about the content. So it's fun, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility.
This paper looks simple and polished, but I know there is so much work that goes into it.
I'm really hard on myself, but I expect that of my writers. I just expect you hit a deadline. And some advertisers too, they don't understand deadlines.
Right.
The hardest part we got to deal with, a couple monthly paper guys, is we're printing on one day of the month, right? That Thursday. So we need everything by this day. And it's not like we're sticking it on a flippin' photocopier. This thing's going on a big printing press. There's lots of stuff that goes into this.
Sometimes putting together Jog is so much work, but I do it because I feel very close to other Bangladeshi people, whether they are in Regina or Vancouver or Halifax or any other cities. I'm Rafik Bouyan. I'm inspired.
Stories have the power to entertain. They also have the power to educate. That's why Nicole Aiken wants to tell them.
When I work with young people, I like to listen to their stories. Sometimes they tell me their stories right away. Other times I start the sharing and we go from there. But I know one thing, stories are powerful. I love watching documentaries like this one. It's called Life on the Res by Lisa Ling, who is an American reporter. Documentaries inspire me to tell stories of my own community, just like Nelson Bird. Today he's hosting CTV's Saskatchewan News, but he also tells our own stories on Indigenous Circle.
It was a good feeling. And then when I got into it, I just tell stories. It's my job as a journalist to be an objective journalist and professional.
Nelson broke into the mainstream and has been successful because of his education. But what about a woman like me?
It's only natural that an Aboriginal woman can achieve the same success that I've had or more and much more, because I welcome the day that I see you on television reporting the news, going live, maybe sitting at an anchor chair, and not just because you're an Aboriginal person, but because you're a qualified, educated person.
Whether I'm reporting from the community or sitting in an anchor's chair, the stories I want to tell come from right here. My home, my culture, and my experiences, blended with all of yours. I'm Nicole Aiken, and I'm inspired.
Travel the world, speak different languages. It's all about communication. Carla Ardell wants to communicate. That's what inspires her, making a difference in the lives of those she meets.
It started with an email, a fluke and a blessing. I was looking for a class, and there was INCA, a class that fit. This fall, I'm heading to Cameroon to work with a non-profit organization that puts oral languages on paper and accelerates literacy in developing countries. But first, I needed a little communications training, and that's where INCA comes in. And a new world filled with journalists has opened up to me, like Shanoa Young, a former INCA student who is interning at the Leader Post, someone who also shares my love of language.
I know Cree and English. If you're working with elders and other community members, it is definitely an asset to know your language, whether it be Cree or Soto or Dene or Nakota, Lakota, or if you come from a different country. I mean, it's always an asset to know, a second language.
But to get here, Shnoa has had to overcome some major hurdles. There was a murder in her family, she had a miscarriage, and struggled with an abusive relationship. All things, she says, made her stronger in the end.
When you're really passionate about something, you find more reasons to stay in it rather than to quit.
In a couple of months, when I board a plane to Cameroon, I will not only be bringing my new training with me, but also Shinoa's story and the inspiration she has given me to be dedicated and driven to telling stories. I'm Carla Ardell, and I'm inspired.
Family, culture, background, art, history, and the entrepreneurial spirit. Combining all those things may seem impossible, unless you're a journalist. As Melanie Mackay is discovering, this job can lead you anywhere.
Whether it's in front of a camera, behind a microphone, or in print, this is what I want. The challenge is to figure out what, where, and when. I'm a mother of 3 kids, and early on, they were a big focus. I have an education degree, but as my kids got older, I watched them discover the world around them, and I realized I had to do the same. A chance to be in front of the camera, like Larissa Burnoff. She's covered stories here a million times. She's a reporter with APTN. But today, she's at First Nations University showing me some tricks. It's a great opportunity because you just never know what's around the corner.
They threw me in front of a camera and said, go, here's your script. And it just kind of worked out. And I took it, and this thing is that, like, at the end of the day, it wasn't what I wanted. Like, I never ever went into journalism. I never went into any of that. I never was a news person. I rarely ever read a newspaper.
Larissa has seen and done so many things, and now all I see are possibilities.
Falling into cameras and television and photography, and it's all creativity, some way, shape, or form. It's always being creative, right? Whether you're writing with your journalism, you're still a writer, you're still a storyteller. Whether you're doing it through the lens of a camera, as a photographer, you're capturing that moment, or you're doing it as a storyteller with video.
I don't know if my next job will be in front of the camera or behind it, but I do know that this is the industry for me, and things will fall into place. I'm Melanie Mackay, and I'm inspired.
Some of us use words to express ourselves. Others use pictures, but not just any pictures. Liam Avison shows us the world he sees through the lens.
This is me, combining 2 passions. One is as a cameraman, shooting and editing video. The other is unicycling, something that has led me to 4 national competitions. But I never really thought about shooting and making my own videos until I met Richard Agecoutay, someone who's worked his way into being one of the most in-demand sports shooters for CBC.
One of my senior colleagues asked me if I'd ever done hockey, and I used to shoot a lot of hockey for Cable Regina. And I said, yeah, I can do hockey. So they stuck me between the benches for Hockey Night in Canada shows.
And now I know, I don't just want to be in the action, I want to shoot the action too. And Richard has laid out the steps I need to take to do that.
When I was working in theater, I was also a photographer, but I volunteered at Cable Regina for 10 years. And that's where I was getting my skills and learning different parts of the craft, and knew that camera, being in the camera department is what I wanted to do.
And I plan to build on that advice, because I thought I was just the shooter, the guy on the other side of the camera, and maybe someone in some of the action shots, but I'm much more.
I'm Liam Avison, and I'm inspired.
She loves to sing and dance powwow, but now she's ready to step out of the spotlight and focus on people like you. Brayden Benjo steps behind the lens and shows us what truly makes her shine.
When I do this, I feel like I belong. I beaded this regalia myself. Powwow is my life. I would love to travel to every corner of North America to do this. It's also a performance. All eyes are on me, but now I want to turn the lens onto others, like Stewart Manhas does.
Go after stuff you love. It's when you love your job, it's something that you're going to be motivated to do. You're going to do your best. You're going to try your hardest. And in this field, that's kind of the best thing you could possibly do.
Stewart took the Indian Communication Arts program at the First Nations University 4 years ago. Now, he spends his mornings like this. He uses his camera to bring live reports from places all over Regina to people's living rooms. He shoots live for Global's morning show.
Good morning, Heather.
This is what I want to do. In real life, Stewart's a performer like me. But when he's behind the camera, he brings others' performances to you.
You can come in every day and you can be handed an assignment, or you can actually bring your stories in. You can tell the stories you want to tell, and you can tell the things that are most important to you.
I want to show the world the culture that I love, from behind the camera. I'm Braden Benjo, and I'm inspired.
She's the energy in the room, a cool combination of funny and smart. Someone who speaks her language, and someone who wants to teach others as well. Our very own Novalee Fox.
Okay, I just have to get off my comfort zone. I think I'm okay now.
This is me in the mix, where I feel most at home. I like being in the middle of action. Who doesn't? Well, I suppose a lot of people, but I'm that person. I like being noticed. But I also like speaking up, and I think that makes me a perfect candidate for journalism. But it's not just about me. I want to marry my love of storytelling with my passion for teaching, and that's when I met Merelda Fiddler. I knew that she could help me get on the right path.
The Prime Minister of Canada was going to issue an apology to residential school survivors, and I went and I found all of these people who had connections to residential schools. So they went to school, they ran away from school, their families went to schools, and we did this huge 2-hour town hall that aired on television and was also on radio. And everyone got to hear that story, and I thought, what a beautiful thing. I mean, for something that so many people for so long knew nothing about, all of a sudden there was this big open place and they knew everything.
And that's what I want. And after speaking with her, I know that I can achieve that.
So whether I'm in front of a camera or in front of a classroom, I want to be a role model like Merelda, because that's what this country needs. More Aboriginal women forging paths and opening doors for the next generation. I'm Novalee Fox, and I'm inspired.
Some of us want to be in front of the lens, while others want to be behind the camera. Brandon Mazank is one of those students who wants to be behind the scenes.
This documentary caught my attention. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I think the power is when you put those together. Storytelling, photography, those are my interests. And this seems to be one way to combine those things with a future career, a job I will love doing. I was also reading Tom Wolfe's book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. I love this story. I was impressed to find it was written by a journalist. Then I met this woman. Shanoa Young is a journalism student in the middle of an internship. She might use modern techniques to tell stories now, but she also understands storytelling's roots.
I consider myself a modern day storyteller, a journalist, and that it's very important because it allows for the community to have a strong sense of democracy, and it connects us.
Whether it's a book by a famous journalist or an interview with an intern, I've always been inspired by the stories I've heard. Now I'm ready to use my skills to share mine and others' stories with the people I meet along the way. I'm Brandon Mazank, and I'm inspired.
This next story starts with music, a universal language in any culture. Our own Geraldine Carrier says the music helped her listen and learn stories. She says she's not just training. She feels as if the music has helped her take those first few steps to become a journalist.
I never had much, run with the bad bunch, little skinny kids sneaking weed in my bag.
This was me 15 years ago. And you might wonder, why am I showing this to you? Isn't she worried about being judged? The answer is no, I'm not. That isn't me anymore. But I don't want to try and pretend I'm perfect, because I'm not. But I am learning. And this is me now, not just an aspiring journalist. I feel like a journalist, just breaking ground on a new start. And what do I want to do? Become so good at what I do and sharing their stories that I help others realize their dreams. Just like Larissa Burnoff.
I'm far from perfect, and I'm just trying my best to keep going, but, staying out of trouble and growing up. You want to be young and you want to be in that scene and you want to party and you have fun, but yeah, you can still do that, but you also have to remember at the same time, there are a lot of people watching you, there are a lot of people looking up to you, and you have a company's name on you now. Your face is with this company, and you know, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing a people.
Just like the stories these works of art show, I want to share stories through the lens. I'm Geraldine Carrier, and I'm inspired. It started small. Michelle Leroy thought journalism looks fun, but now she knows it can take you anywhere you want to go.
This is where I go every day. I'm a full-time student at the First Nations University of Canada and a full-time mom. It's a big job. Well, actually, it's 2 big jobs, but I know I can do this. Nelson Bird, host of Indigenous Circle, had some great advice for me.
There's a lot of people going to journalism schools and all over, from coast to coast. So, but with a degree or with a diploma, you have that one opportunity more to get that job that you want. So I would say just stick to it. No matter what anybody says, there'll be rough times, there'll be good times, but if you have a goal and you want to achieve it, you can.
It might seem like just a dream, but one day I want this chair to be mine. And while I used to wonder if I can do this, when I met Nelson Bird, I realized it can become my reality.
Education is the key, because it got me to where I am. You know, it's, whether it's taking classes in a certificate program, diploma, or a degree, I would recommend that you take that path.
Right now, I'm just enjoying the process of learning the craft, because it used to seem like my future was a long way away. But the reality is, our futures are often right around the corner. I'm Michelle Leroy, and I'm inspired.
Being a mom in this industry is normal, but it adds a whole new set of challenges. Jessica LaPlante explores how her career goals can, and someday will, line up with her family.
This is Jessie, my best surprise, and the best part of my day is right now. The time of day when school is done and we have a few minutes together to play and talk about our day. Journalism is interesting, but what I think I really want to do is get into communications. Still, I'll need to know what this industry is all about, because that's largely who I'll be communicating with. Journalists, like Penny Smoke. She's got 3 kids at home, 2 toddlers. But here, she's all business. Penny spends all day meeting news deadlines. But the most important deadline of the day is daycare pickup.
I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be at work at 8 to get my kids to daycare. You know, it's just all a matter of having passion and being able to get it all on track.
Penny says every hectic day, every early morning, pays off in many more ways than a paycheck.
So my 9-year-old is he's pretty psyched about it. You know, like he goes to school and tells people that his mom is a reporter, and he tells people where I work, and he's proud, and that makes me proud.
Like Penny, I'm a mom on a mission to make writing and communicating a great career. Because it's not just my story I'm writing anymore, it's my son's too. I'm Jessica LaPlante, and I'm inspired.
She's a small town girl who says she'll never forget her roots. In fact, she wants to share them every day. Taryn Reimer just didn't know how to merge journalism and a small town until she came to INCA.
This is where I'm from. This is where I lived for the first 17 years of my life. This is where I live now. I miss home, but you can't be a television journalist in White Fox, Saskatchewan. I was never really sure if I could blend my small town farming roots with journalism until I met this woman. Merelda Fiddler is the current affairs producer at CBC Saskatchewan. She also comes from the small town of Meadow Lake in the province's north. I always thought that if you wanted to be a journalist, you need to report on the big news in big cities. What I found, though, is quite different. There are many stories out there. There are also areas that you can work specifically in. This is what I want to do. Along with being a news reporter, I want to bring my roots forward. Being an agriculture and farming reporter is my goal, and one day, an anchor. Merelda has taught me that hard work is everything. and also that here in Saskatchewan, there are many opportunities as well. So even though I want to be here, standing in front of the camera, one day in front of you, every now and again, I'll just get in the car and head for the nearest city exit. Because being good at what you do is all about never forgetting who you are and where you come from. I'm Taryn Reimer, and I'm inspired.
This is a moment I'll never forget. Skyping with journalist, educator, and artist, Wob Canoe. I saw him speak one night, and I just saw something that blew me away. A First Nations man who not only knew his stuff, but also had the courage to say what he thought and still be incredibly respectful.
I think if you look at yourself more as a facilitator that's part of that team, and rather than like the boss who's calling shots, then I think you're in good shape, because you'll not only win respect and a good working relationship from your colleagues, but you also be able to heighten the caliber of your work through unleashing the power of collaboration.
I'm not sure what I want to do yet. Stand in front of a camera, work for radio, or write for a fashion magazine. But what I do know is, I want to have the courage to do what I want, just like Wob Canoe.
You just go out into the world, you do your best, and people see what you're doing, and if it matches up with their priorities, then they reach out to you. And I've been really lucky to have a good mix of opportunities thrown my way, and then to have the, training and background and wherewithal to make those opportunities work out. So I'm hoping this new gig. I'm hoping this new gig turns out well, because being a foreign correspondent is my dream job.
I'm Alex Saladuca, and I'm inspired. Journalists tell stories, but for some, it's an art form that stems way back to our ancestors, like our own Simon Moccasin.
I do this for a living. I tell stories of the trickster and of creation. This is an art passed down from my grandparents. My mom then taught me. It electrifies me when people laugh, or when their faces drop when a story is sad. Nelson Bird is a different kind of storyteller. Instead of kids in a gymnasium, his stories reach people when they're at home watching TV. But like me, Nelson connects with his audience.
It's not just telling stories, it's sharing stories. I go out and I meet people all the time. Every week, every month, I'm meeting people from across Saskatchewan, whether they be First Nation, Métis, or not. And I'm listening to their stories. So I'm going and I'm telling their stories. I'm actually letting them tell the stories. So in a sense, I'm a storyteller who's sharing other people's stories. That's what I am. And it gives me such great pleasure to be able to do that all the time.
Nelson's made a career of telling our stories, and he's really good at it. I now understand why my people make natural journalists.
We as First Nations people are oral tradition people. And even though I'm telling stories on television, even though I may be writing them in a newspaper, as journalists will do, they're also in my head, and they're also passed on so other people can tell them too.
I'm Simon Moccasin, this is my story, and I'm inspired.
And that's our show. A show that reflects who we are and the people who've inspired us to become journalists.
The next time you see us, we'll be coming to you from the television, or writing our own column in a newspaper, or hosting our own radio show.
That's right. We're the next generation of journalists to come out of INCA, right here at the First Nations University of Canada.
So remember us the next time you see our resumes and tapes cross your desk.
Okay. Fanak. Yeah. One. Take. One. Okay. Action.
But it's only the beginning for the class of aspiring journalists.
Okay.
But this is just the beginning for a group of...
Oh. I gotta get my focus here. That was Fanak. 3. Take 3. No, this is take 1. I'm sorry.
A universal culture. To help
to take those first 2 steps to becoming a journalist. Hello? Can you hear us?
A show that reflects who we are. Also, the people who have inspired us to take our first steps into the world of journalism. Because
I thought I had the right page.
Stand by.
Okay.
Start with the circular. Good job, Jared. Good job. Can we get this girl some water?
Uppercut right in the nuts.
Right in the baby makers. So remember us the next time you see our resumes cross your desk. Because they're coming. Ah, I bid your line again! Sorry.
Coming. Stand by.
I fucked. Paige Kreitzweiser knows what a field goal.
Here we go. That's it. I didn't quite get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's try one more time.
One more time.
To be determined and driven to telling stories.
One more.
Sorry, I just forgot.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah. And then Simon, he goes up on the stage when it's his turn to talk. He walks up onto the stage to the podium and he just flops. That was so funny.
I know I may not start in sports. Okay, I need to see that for 1 second, turn. I'm Taylor. Oh, shoot.
All right. From Taylor Field.
From Taylor Field, okay.
When you're ready, go. Go for it.
Leader post. 1. Take 2.
Okay.
Braden Benjo steps behind the lens. Ooh!
So close.
I know.
So close. You had it.
And she loves it. It's inspired her.
Next one. Go.
CBC 1. Take.
Paige Kreitzweiser knows what a field goal will look like for her.
Field like goal.
Field like goal. Paige Kreitzweiser knows what a field goal.
Here we go.
Thanks for watching. INCA Inspired.
Hey, that's it.
Yes! Yes! Nailed it!
Yeah, we did that.
7 times the charm.